surgery and robotic assisted surgery. Laparoscopy surgical methods are increasingly used nowadays to treat both malignant and non-malignant diseases. And the advantages, important advantages of laparoscopic methods that are appealing to patients include smaller incisions, lesser perioperative and postoperative pain, limited reduction of mobility of patient, shorter hospital stay, earlier return to pre-surgical activity levels and work. Coming to minimally invasive surgery in endometrial cancer, the treatment of endometrial cancer, the standard staging include hysterectomy with bilateral salpingo-oophorectomy with lymph node sampling. And this can be done through open laparoscopic, and the approaches are open laparoscopic and robotic. And the first laparoscopic surgery, which was described in 1993, that was a laparoscopy assisted vaginal hysterectomy by Childers et al. And the added advantage of using minimally invasive surgery in CA endometrium is especially useful is that majority of patients are having obesity. So this is more useful because it can reduce the immediate post-op complications, including pulmonary complication and wound infections. And even though it was first described more than 20 years back, it came into routine use. It took almost one and a half decade to use it more routinely. And the important landmark studies that has proven the that has evaluated the efficacy and oncological safety of laparoscopy include the first is by Mauritz et al., who evaluated the safety of laparoscopy versus laparotomy in early stage endometrial cancer. This was a randomized trial done in Netherlands from 2007 to 2009. It included 283 patients, and they assessed the complication rate of laparoscopy versus abdominal hysterectomy, which included patients with both complex endometrial hyperplasia and CA endometrium. That is endometrioid adenocarcinoma, grade 1 to 2, and stage 1 they included. And 187 patients were allocated to total laparoscopy group, and 96 were allocated to abdominal hysterectomy group. And the outcome they measured was major complication rate. And they also studied minor complication rate, treatment-related outcomes, including operating time and blood loss, and quality of life. And the most major histological subtype included in the study was endometrial adenocarcinoma and stage 1 CA endometrium. And when they compared the major complication rate, the laparoscopy group and which was expected to have a lesser complication, immediate complication, but there was similar major complication rate between laparoscopy and laparotomy group, 14.6 and 14.9%. And the major complications they studied was visceral injuries, hematoma requiring intervention, hemorrhage, and wound dehiscence and wound infection. And minor complications was also almost similar between the two groups. And so when they studied 183 laparoscopy and 196 abdominal hysterectomy patients, major complication rate was almost similar. And the laparoscopy group had mean duration of surgery was 115 minutes versus 71 minutes. And laparoscopy arm had advantages with regard to mean blood loss, mean hospital stay, lesser mean hospital stay, lesser use for pain medication, and early resumption to daily activities. And they reported quality of life. When they reported the results of quality of life, there was higher physical function score and role function score in laparoscopy arm. And there was no difference between the groups with regard to mental and physical dimension. And when the result of conversion to laparotomy showed 10.8%, rate of 10.8%. So they concluded that there is no evidence of lower rate of major complication for laparoscopy. It is comparable with the open, and the whatever advantages was with regard to treatment-related outcomes was better in laparoscopy arm, which is significantly less blood loss and less pain medication, lesser hospital stay, and earlier recovery. And the next landmark trial, which evaluated the short-term and oncological safety, perioperative complication and oncological safety, was LAP2 trial. And this was again one randomized trial. It was a prospective multi-institutional randomized trial. which included this. The difference from first trial is that first trial evaluated stage 1 patients. Here they included both stage 1 and 2 patients. And so because of that, they included pelvic and para-aortic lymphadenectomy also in this trial. So the patients were enrolled between 1996 to 2005, and a total of 2016 patients were taken, and they were to undergo either by minimally invasive method or by open surgery, hysterectomy with bilateral salpingo-oophorectomy, pelvic and para-aortic node dissection. And they studied, the primary outcome they studied was recurrent-free survival, and the other secondary outcomes they studied was perioperative adverse events, the conversion of laparotomy rate, length of hospital stay, and operative time, sites of recurrence, and survival. So finally, the majority of patients belong to stage 1 and 2 of endometrial cancer, and the histological type that was mainly studied in this trial was endometrioid adenocarcinoma. So when they compared the lymph node dissection that was done for these patients, para-aortic nodal dissection was laparotomy group underwent 97% of para-aortic node dissection when compared to 94% of laparoscopy group. And both pelvic and para-aortic node, when they compared, that was more in laparotomy group than laparoscopy group. So that is 95 in laparotomy and 91 in laparoscopy. But still 9% of both group were detected with a lymph node metastasis. So this shows that there was similar efficacy in staging, even though the laparoscopy group underwent a little lower rate of para-aortic nodal dissection. This efficacy of staging was almost similar for lymph node staging in this study. Then when they compared the postoperative complication, there was significantly lower rate of postoperative complication in laparoscopy group. That was only 14% for laparoscopy when compared to 21% for laparotomy group. And the other perioperative events, when they compared, the need for antibiotics also was significantly less in laparoscopy group, and hospital stay was also less in laparoscopy group. So initially this perioperative event complications, when they published in 2009, first, so the conversion rate to open laparotomy was high. Overall was 25.8, but in the initial years of study, that was more. And over a period of time, when surgeons gained more expertise in doing laparoscopy, the rate of conversion came down. In the initial years, it was high, and the most common reason was poor visibility. And over later years, that came down. But so the overall was, but still 25. And in 2009, with these perioperative complications, after publishing the results of perioperative complication, they concluded that laparoscopy is feasible with an improved safety profile for comprehensive staging in C endometrium patients, with increased without increased intra complication and with fewer post-op complication and shorter hospital stay. And they continued this study. They followed up the patients for 5 years. And for studying the oncological safety of minimally invasive surgery. And so the primary objective of this study was to prove non-inferiority of laparoscopy when compared to laparotomy for recurrence in C endometrium. So the patients initially randomly assigned was 2016. For laparotomy, there was 920, but finally those who received laparotomy underwent surgery was 909. So of the 909 who underwent surgery, those who are alive without recurrence were 772. And those who are allotted to laparoscopy and underwent surgery was 1,600. Out of that, those who are alive and without recurrence was 1,409. So when they compared the recurrence rate was almost similar in both arms. So that there was 210 recurrences in laparoscopy group and 77 deaths, and 99 recurrences in laparotomy group and 49 deaths. So when they compared the recurrence at 3 years, it was 10.4 in laparotomy versus 10.2 in laparotomy versus 11.29 in laparoscopy group. And when they compared at 5 years, it was 11.6 and 13.6 in laparoscopy group. And when they compared the overall survival, which was almost same in both the arms, that was 89.8% each at 4.5 years. So And the other thing, the result they published was regarding recurrence. Recurrence was so the recurrence site of recurrence. So recurrence was almost similar in both two arms, and there were 4 abdominal wall recurrences which are of concern. That was trocar site recurrences, probably trocar site recurrences, out of which 3 were in patients with advanced disease. But there were only 0.24% abdominal wall recurrences in the laparotomy arm. And the hazard ratio for, and in the results, the hazard ratio for laparoscopy versus laparotomy was 1.14. So the non-inferiority criteria was not met in this trial. So they concluded that comprehensive staging can be performed with laparoscopy with a relatively small difference in recurrence rate with improved quality of life and decreased complications. But hazard ratio for non-inferiority was not met. Hazard ratio was 1.14. So non-inferiority was not met from this trial. And the next landmark trial for evaluating minimally invasive surgery in C endometrium is LACE trial. It was another, it was an equivalence trial, randomized multinational equivalence trial done from 2005 to 2010. And this was to establish equivalence of laparoscopic hysterectomy with abdominal hysterectomy in early stage endometrium patients with regard to quality of life. This was a 2-phase trial. Initially, they assessed quality of life, and they followed up the patients for 4.5 years. And the second phase was for disease-free survival. So this included 760 patients in the gynecological oncology centers in Australia, New Zealand, and Hong Kong. So in the first initial quality of life subset study, 332 patients were enrolled, 190 in laparoscopy and 142 in abdominal. Their quality of life was assessed at 1 week, 4 week, 3 months, and 6 months using a FACGS questionnaire. And improved quality of life was up to 6 months after surgery. Improvement was noted in laparoscopy arm, except for emotional and social well-being measures. And along with this, they studied serious adverse events that was lesser for laparoscopy arm. That was 7.9 only when compared to abdominal. So from the phase 1, they concluded data favoring laparoscopy with regard to quality of life improvement and better adverse event profile. And in 2012, they reported the results with regard to surgical safety of using minimally invasive surgery in C endometrium. So 760 patients were allocated 407 in laparoscopy and 53 in abdominal. So when they assessed the post-op adverse events, that was significantly lower, 12.9 versus 18 in laparoscopy, and adverse events, then serious adverse events, then mean operating time was higher, but mean hospital stay and fall in hemoglobin was less by 2, significantly lower in laparoscopy arm. So in 2012, with the surgical safety results, they compared, and they concluded that this is laparoscopy is associated with significantly decreased risk of major surgical adverse events, and it is safe approach for staging of C endometrium. And the second phase was completed, and results were published in 2017. The patients were followed up for oncological safety and followed up till 2016. And finally, 89% of the patients have completed this trial. And the primary outcome they studied in this phase 2 was disease-free survival, and secondary outcome was recurrence and overall survival. And they noticed a conversion. They reported the conversion rate of 6% to laparotomy. So on comparing the two arms, they noted almost similar disease-free interval of in between the two arms with a significant p-value for equivalence. And the recurrence was also similar in both arms, and overall survival was also similar in both arms. So they concluded that in women with endometrial cancer, laparoscopy resulted in equivalent disease-free interval when compared to abdominal, and there is no difference in overall survival. So equivalent oncological safety. So these findings support the use of laparoscopic in stage 1 endometrial cancer. So this is a system in high-risk endometrial cancer. There are only fewer studies, and most of them are retrospective studies. So this is a systematic review analyzing retrospective studies in use of minimally invasive surgery in high-risk endometrial cancer. And they included 9 studies, 8 retrospective studies, and 1 post-hoc analysis from Lab2 was also there, including all the high-risk patients, grade 3 patients, and serous clear cell and carcinosarcoma patients. In a retrospective study by Fade et al. In 2012, he concluded that he noticed lower perioperative complication in minimally invasive surgery group with a similar overall survival, recurrence-free survival, and disease-free survival. And so he concluded that minimally invasive is can be performed in this high-risk endometrial cancers also. And the post-hoc analysis of Lab2, including high-grade, also reported similar recurrence rate and similar recurrence and similar survival. So this systematic review concluded that minimally invasive surgery is safe in high-risk endometrial cancer patients also, with a better perioperative and post-op outcome and comparable oncological outcome. But prospective randomized trials would be needed to confirm this data on high-risk cancers. So to conclude, based on this these studies on use of minimally invasive surgery in CA endometrial, it is clear that minimally invasive surgery is superior with regard to the perioperative outcome in patients, and it has an equivalent outcome regarding oncological safety. So NCCN is advising minimally invasive surgery as a standard of care in CA endometrium, and EEE guidelines also, minimally invasive surgery is the preferred surgical approach, including patients with high-risk endometrial cancer also. And while doing minimally invasive surgery, any intraperitoneal tumor spillage, including rupture or morcellation, should be avoided. And if during vaginal extraction, if any uterine rupture should be avoided by use of any retrieval of specimen by mini laparotomy or use of endobag. And in case of tumors with metastasis outside uterus, but excluding lymph node metastasis, that is a relative contraindication for minimally invasive surgery. When there is extrauterine metastasis, MIS is contraindicated. Coming to minimally invasive surgery in cervical cancer. In cervical cancer, radical hysterectomy with pelvic lymphadenectomy is a standard recommendation for early stage cervical cancer. And all the initial studies for MIS in cervical cancer was retrospective studies which reported improved perioperative outcome with the equivalent oncological outcome. So until the landmark LAC trial was published in 2018, there was a widespread use of minimally invasive surgery in cervical cancer. Then the data from landmark trial, LAC trial was published in 2018, which changed practice, a widespread change in practice. So the LAC trial was a phase 3 multi-center randomized trial. This was to evaluate whether MIS is non-inferior to open hysterectomy. So the primary outcome they measured was disease-free survival at 4.5 years, and secondary outcome was recurrence rate and overall survival. So in LAC trial, they studied stage 1A1, including with the LVS, lymphovascular space invasion patients, then stage 1A2, then 1B1. In 1B1, the old figure staging, that is tumor size up to 4 centimeters included. And patients with better performance score 0 to 1 was taken in this study. And all these patients were to undergo type 2 or type 3 radical hysterectomy. And all the patients who are having larger uterus, previous radiotherapy, and who had metastatic disease by initial imaging were excluded. But by 2017 November, they had to permanently close the enrollment of patients to this study because higher death rates are reported in the MIS arm. So by then, only 61 patients were enrolled out of initially planned 740 patients. And always for all the prospective surgical trials, there will be always questions regarding the efficacy or different efficacy or expertise of surgeons. So which is overcome by the surgery quality control that they have kept. They asked for a minimum of the surgeons who are taking part in this trial should have done a minimum of 10 laparoscopic or robotic assisted hysterectomy, and they should give 2 unedited videos of their laparoscopic or robot assisted type 3 RH, and the committee members reviewed the surgeon's technique and their patient's outcomes. Then only they could take part in the trial. And the baseline characteristics were comparable in both the arms. The histological subtype that was included was squamous cell carcinoma, followed was the majority, followed by adenocarcinoma and adenosquamous. And the stage 1A1, 1A2, and 1B1 was included. And so out of this, the majority of patients belong to 1B1, that is 92 patients belong to 1B1. And both arms had similar characteristics. And there was only 3.5% conversion to laparotomy. So when they analyzed, when they compared the 407 patients with laparoscopy arm, which laparoscopy arm included both minimally invasive arm included both laparoscopy and robotic surgery. And when they compared this with 353 patients in abdominal hysterectomy, they noticed a 10% lower disease-free survival in the minimally invasive surgery arm. And at 3 years, that is at 4.5 years, and at 3 years also, there was almost 6% lesser disease-free survival. Hence, the hazard ratio for recurrence or death was 3.74. And when they compared the overall survival, that was also almost 6% lesser in the MIS arm. So when they compared the disease-free survival, that was significantly lower in minimally invasive surgery arm with a hazard ratio of 3.74. And on comparing overall survival, the hazard overall survival was lesser in MIS arm after 4.5 years, and hazard ratio for death from any cause was 6. And when they analyzed the disease-specific survival, the rate of death was higher in MIS arm, and the hazard ratio for death from cervical cancer alone was 6.56. And when they assess the locoregional recurrence, that was also higher in minimally invasive surgery arm. Hazard ratio of locoregional recurrence was 4.2. And all these were in the intention to treat and in the intention to treat analysis. And per protocol analysis also supported these findings. And when they did a subgroup analysis of robotic assisted and laparoscopy, again the results were consistent with these. And there was inferior oncological outcome in the MIS arm, and the potential reasons they explained for this was it can be a routine use of uterine manipulator that can lead to tumor spillage, or it can be because of the effect of insufflation gas. And the limitations of the study was the study did not reach its final intended enrollment owing to the safety alert. And at the time of analysis, only 59.7% of patients reached the 4.5-year time point. So they concluded that minimally invasive radical surgery, when compared to open, was associated with higher rate of recurrence, lower rate of disease-free survival, and lower overall survival. But they also told that the results of this trial cannot be generalized to other low-risk patients like with no lymphovascular invasion and less than 2 centimeters, because that this was not studied for this group of patients. And following this, there was another SUPCA study. This was a retrospective observational cohort study. This was done in European countries from 2013 to 2014. So, so this compared again minimally invasive surgery with abdominal hysterectomy. But the difference from the LACTRIAL is that this included only stage 1B1 patients. And when LACTRIAL was a prospective trial, this was a retrospective study. But LACTRIAL included stage 1A, 1A1 and A2 and 1B1. Here only 1B1. And the primary endpoint for this study was disease-free survival, and secondary endpoint was again overall survival. And here they also explored the association of using specific surgical maneuvers that may can result in increased risk of relapse. So they included stage 1B1, and these patients had to undergo either by MIS or open type B or C radical hysterectomy with pelvic lymph node dissection in a lymphadenectomy in a European institution from 2013 January to 2014 December. And they studied patients with squamous cell. Histological types include squamous cell, adeno, and adenosquamous. And these patients should not have metastasis. And at least the criteria was at least 10 pelvic lymph nodes should be removed during their lymphadenectomy. And they excluded the patients with prior colonization because after colonization, the size of tumor cannot be assessed. The pathological information will be missing. So 693 patients were random. The two arms were MIS and open surgery, 291 and 402. In that, there was significantly higher relapse, 20% versus 11 in MIS arm, with lower disease-free survival. Then hazard ratio for recurrence was 2.09, and overall survival was also lower in MIS arm, and hazard ratio for death was 2.42. And all these differences were significant when they did subgroup analysis, and were significant when tumor size is more than 2 centimeters. So when they compared the incidence of relapse, that was significantly higher in MIS arm, and the incidence of death was also higher in MIS arm. Hazard ratio for death was 2.42. So all these differences were significant in tumor size more than 2 centimeters. And they also, the secondary objective was to analyze the use of uterine manipulator. So there were 3 arms. One was open surgery, then MIS with manipulator and without manipulator. And they observed that when manipulator is used during minimally invasive surgery, there was increased relapse and a lower disease-free survival. And hazard ratio for recurrence was 2.76, and hazard ratio was for death was 3. So when manipulator is used, the patients who underwent without manipulator, had similar outcome like open surgeries, and those with the manipulator had poorer outcome. And they also compared the use of vaginal closure during minimally invasive surgery, and they observed that when protective vaginal closure is used, the relapses are less. So when protective vaginal closure is not used, relapses were more with poorer disease-free survival and increased hazard ratio for recurrence. So they concluded that in a European population, minimally invasive surgery is associated with significantly worse oncological outcome than open surgery in CA cervix. And they also concluded that our use of avoiding uterine manipulator and closure of vagina over tumor to prevent tumor spillage can improve the outcome of minimally invasive surgery. So again, this study also showed poor oncological outcome of minimally invasive surgery. And along with this, another SEER data was published by Melamed. He also compared radical open hysterectomy to 1,200 patients with another 1,200 patients who underwent minimally invasive surgery. And Melamed et al. Also reported a poorer oncological outcome for MIS patients. He reported a 4-year mortality rate of 5.3 versus 9.1 in minimally 5.3 in MIS arm. Currently, there is another robotic assisted approach to cervical RAT trial that is going on to evaluate the safety and oncological outcome of robotic assisted surgery in cervical cancer. So this is to assess the non-inferiority of robotic assisted surgery to laparotomy, and their outcome measured to be measured are recurrence-free survival and post-op and peri-op complications. And so they are again RAC trial. They are including stage 1B1 and 1B2. They are excluding 1B3. So this is the latest trial. So the present 2018 FIGO staging. So less than 2 and 2 to 4 centimeter tumors they are including, and stage 1A1, that is vaginal involvement with less than 2 centimeter they are including, and patients are randomized to robotic arm and laparotomy arm. And they have started the trial in May 2019 and this is expected to close in May 2027. So all the initial retrospective studies have shown a better perioperative complication, better perioperative outcome, and almost equal in oncological outcome. There was a widespread use, and then this landmark trials like LAC trial, Zucker study, and SEER data was published. Then there was a widespread change in practice of surgeons from minimally invasive surgery to open surgery for cervical cancer patients. So this is a controversial topic still, and the RAC trial is going on, and we have to wait for these results. So at present, when we get a patient, we have to counsel the patient regarding these approaches. We have to counsel them regarding the oncological risk versus the short-term benefits while deciding a surgery for a CS cervix patient. So coming to minimally invasive surgery, the role of minimally invasive surgery in CA ovary. So when while considering minimally invasive surgery in CA ovary, our concerns are tumor spillage during laparoscopy, minimally invasive surgery, then difficulty in tumor extraction, large ovarian tumors, and concern of port site metastasis. So there are a few studies that have evaluated the role of minimally invasive surgery in CA ovary. One older study, initial study was using a laparoscopic scoring to assess the operability of ovarian cancer. This is the Fagotti. This is the study by Anna Fagotti. This is a validation for laparoscopic predictive model for assessing the resectability or optimal cytoreduction in advanced CA ovary. So they studied 113 consecutive patients. So they calculated a predictive index value that is called Fagotti's predictive index value was calculated for each patient, adding scores for 7 variables. So, and the predictive index value was calculated, and for the predictive index value, they calculated sensitivity, specificity, positive predictive value, and negative predictive value, and overall accuracy of this laparoscopic assessment was calculated. So the 7 components or the 7 variables was, first is peritoneal carcinomatosis. When the patient is having massive peritoneal involvement plus miliary involvement of peritoneum, score 2 to be given, and otherwise 0. Then diaphragmatic disease, white infiltrating diaphragmatic disease, or confluent nodules in most of the diaphragm, 2 scores should be given. Then mesenteric disease, that is large infiltrating nodules, or involvement of root of mesentery. Involvement of root of mesentery can be assumed when there is poor bowel movements, limited movements of the bowel loops during laparoscopy. And so this then in that case of also below score 2. Then omentum, when there is infiltration or tumor in the omentum reaching up to the greater curvature of stomach, score 2. Then bowel infiltration, when we are expecting a bowel resection during the surgery, or when there is miliary carcinomatosis over the bowel serous, also score 2. Then stomach infiltration, when there is obvious involvement of the stomach, score 2 should be given. And any liver surface deposit also, score 2 should be given. So after this, the predictive index value for each patient was calculated, and the negative predictive value and positive predictive value was calculated and was compared. So they observed that when the predictive index value is more than or equal to 8, the only 0% of patients are expected to have optimal cytoreduction. And if a laparotomy is done, there are 40% probability for them to land in futile laparotomy. So they they arrived at an overall accuracy rate of this laparoscopic procedure from 77 to 100% on using this. And so they proposed that this laparoscopic model is a reliable and flexible tool to predict optimal cytoreduction in advanced ovarian cancer. Then they evaluated this laparoscopic scoring for ovary and study a single institution impact on prognosis in a single institution experience by Anna Fagotti. So stage 3C and stage 4 patients were included from 2006 to 2010, and they subjected all advanced epithelial ovarian carcinoma patients to staging laparoscopy initially to decide whether primary debulking surgery should be done first or NACT followed by interval deepening. And they evaluated the surgical outcome and survival outcome of these patients. So this is the Catholic University algorithm they have used. All advanced epithelial ovarian tumors, they will do laparoscopy, and when the predictive index value is less than 8, they'll go for optimal cytoreduction. And when the predictive index value is equal or more than 8, these patients were sent for NACT, and then the tumor response was evaluated. And if they are having still progressive disease, they were sent for second-line chemotherapy. And if they are having complete response, they were taken for interval debulking surgery. If they are having a stable or partial response, they were then again they have to undergo a staging laparoscopy. And in that staging laparoscopy, if their predictive index value is less than 4, they were taken for interval debulking surgery. And if the predictive index value is more than or equal to 4, they were again sent for chemotherapy, either the continuation of standard chemotherapy or a second-line chemotherapy. So out of the 300 patients they studied, 148 they have allocated to primary debulking surgery. So after staging laparoscopy, only 15 patients or 10% patients only were left with suboptimal cytoreduction or futile laparotomy when they used this algorithm. So when they compared the outcome of primary debulking surgery and interval debulking surgery, there was significantly the mean length of surgery was significantly more in primary debulking surgery. When they compared the primary debulking versus interval debulking, the length of surgery was more in primary debulking, and mean length of hospitalization more in primary debulking, and the extent of surgery. It was more aggressive surgery in primary debulking, obviously. So mean days to start chemotherapy, the days to start chemotherapy was also significantly more in primary debulking surgery. And when they assessed the progression-free survival in all these patients, they found that when patients underwent primary debulking surgery and with no residual tumor had a better progression-free survival. And then the next were patients who underwent primary debulking with less than 0 to 1 centimeter residual tumor. And the interval debulking surgery, optimally reduced, cytoreduced interval debulking surgery and primary debulking with suboptimal had almost similar progression-free survival. So they concluded that residual tumor is a critically important thing predicting survival of patient. So if during staging laparoscopy, if residual tumor optimal cytoreduction, or if no residual tumor cannot be achieved, then we have to decide between primary cytoreduction and NACT with interval debulking, considering the patient's subject's ability to sustain an aggressive surgery. So in this context, staging laparoscopy seems a suitable tool to define the extent of surgery to decide between primary debulking and NACT. So in this study, on using this predictive index value and this algorithm, the futile laparotomies was only 10% when they did staging laparoscopy to decide primary debulking versus NACT. And this is a randomized control trial which evaluated the role of laparoscopy before primary cytoreductive surgery. So this evaluated the role of DLAP to prevent futile laparotomy while taking a patient for primary cytoreductive surgery. This was for advanced stage ovarian cancer. And this was a multi-center randomized trial undertaken in Netherlands. It was done from 2011 to 2015, and almost 201 participants were included in this trial. So patients with advanced epithelial ovarian cancer, advanced CO ovary, for whom primary cytoreduction seemed possible, were taken for the study. And in the intervention arm, diagnostic laparoscopy was done before primary cytoreduction. And in the control arm, patients were taken directly for primary cytoreduction. And when they did the diagnostic laparoscopy, the decision for that they can't do an optimal cytoreduction was arrived at if the patient had extensive agglutinated intraabdominal disease, extensive bowel serosal invasion, or extensive peritoneal metastasis. And they have taken stage 3 and 4 advanced epithelial ovarian cancer mainly, and the histological type included was serous epithelial ovarian cancer and grade 3. And when they compared DLAP followed by surgery and direct surgery, 102 patients in DLAP and 99 for primary debulking directly. Futile laparotomy was only 10% in DLAP followed by surgery versus 39 in the control arm. And the number of laparotomy required for optimal cytoreduction was only 1 in majority of patients, that is 92% patients, whereas 2 surgeries, and when 2 surgeries were needed for significantly 28% of patients in control arm for achieving optimal cytoreduction. And when they did a subgroup analysis also for stage 3 and 4, futile laparotomy rate was significantly lower when DLAP was done before primary debulking surgery. So they conclude that diagnostic laparoscopy should be considered in the diagnostic workup to guide between a decision for primary cytoreduction and neoadjuvant chemotherapy. And this is a study done in our institution to validate the laparoscopy based scoring. So to evaluate the safety and efficacy of laparoscopy, the study was to evaluate the safety and efficacy of laparoscopy for patients who are taken for interval cytoreduction, patients with advanced epithelial ovarian cancer who are undergoing interval cytoreduction. And the primary outcome measured was the laparoscopy based predictive index value score. The Fagotti et al. By Fagotti et al. Was evaluated. It's a prospective validation trial done in patients for interval cytoreduction, and the efficacy of each laparoscopy score was analyzed using ROC curves. And as I told, the Fagotti scoring 7 parameters were these 7, and the final PIV score was calculated for each patient. And when the PIV scores were calculated, and at more than positive predictive value and negative predictive values calculated, and 2 parameters, that is mesenteric retraction and the stomach infiltration, had poor performance in this ROC curve. So a modified PIV score was calculated for each patient after excluding these 2 parameters. So it was observed that for a score, the operability was, or complete cytoreduction was almost 0 from a score of 6 or more. So it was concluded that laparoscopic PIV score is safe and accurate for predicting the operability in interval cytoreduction. And this modified PIV score with 5 parameters is a simplified score, but with same accuracy for predicting operability like original PIV score. So regarding minimally invasive surgery, the role in ovarian cancer, there is limited use for staging because of the large bulkiness of tumor and because of the concerns of tumor spillage. But there is a possible role in restaging of ovarian cancers after the removal of the adnexal mass in early stages. And the major use at present is lying in assessing the resectability of advanced epithelial tumor, advanced epithelial cancers, and in triaging the patients whether to be taken for primary debulking and interval debulking before interval debulking surgeries.
Okay, Sajida, good presentation. Why do you think that minimally invasive surgery had a good outcome in endometrial cancer and bad in cervical cancer?
The tumor spillage, because of tumor spillage, there was more recurrences, madam. But in endometrium, the chance of tumor spillage is lesser. And because the tumor is confined within the uterus, so the chance of recurrences, oncological outcome is better in endometrial, ma'am.
Yeah, in a cervical cancer, there is no way that you can avoid handling of the tumor. And the handling is more in minimally invasive, probably that's why. So what is the way out? Do you think MIS is out or?
Not out, ma'am. By using, avoiding using a uterine manipulators and by closing the vagina over tumor, still there are, we can consider do this thing, ma'am.
How do you close the vagina over the tumor?
Ma'am, the circumferentially vaginal flap should be raised and it should be closed over the tumor.
In nodal with the TIRADS 3, which is more.
Sir, I can't hear, sir.
No. Sajida പറഞ്ഞോ.
Madam, ആരും എന്തോ ചോദിച്ചെന്ന് തോന്നി.
വേറെന്തോ ക്ലാസ് കേട്ടതാ.
Okay. So closure of so avoiding uterine manipulators and closure of vagina over the tumor can. That is circumferential vaginal flap should be raised. Circumferential incision should be given and vagina should be dissected off from the pelvic wall and it should be closed over the tumor, ma'am. Before
vagina off the pelvic wall.
circumferential
Madam, vaginally നമ്മള് ആദ്യം circumferential incision above the tumor. Put a circumferential incision well above the cervical tumor and raise the vaginal flaps and
Do you
close
say
this
above the
vaginal
tumor? How do you say above the tumor?
below the tumor margin.
Means we are seeing the tumor, ma'am.
Where will you
Per
put the
vaginal
circumferential vaginal incision?
In the inferior border of the tumor, ma'am, just below the tumor level,
Yeah.
incision
2
and the
centimeter
mucosa
beyond the
vaginal
tumor.
beyond,
Beyond the
and
tumor.
vaginal mucosa should be raised from the rest of the layers, and it should be closed over the. It should and the vaginal mucosa should be closed over the tumor, ma'am.
Just like a vaginal radical trachelectomy incision.
Okay, madam.
Okay. PGs, any questions?
Sajida, is there any role for laparoscopy in early ovary? Or is there
Early
any
ovary,
evidence to say that you should not go for? Or what are the problems when you go for minimally invasive surgery in early
the
ovary?
chances of tumor spillage is a concern, madam. So if the ovarian mass is larger, so that can get if there is spillage, the tumor will get upstage to stage 1C. The patient will be needing then adjuvant chemotherapy. So that is a concern. So better will be in restaging. That is after the tumor removal. When we are restaging, we can consider. Otherwise, when there is a unilateral tumor, also you can upstage the tumor, man. If there is spillage.
Is there any evidence to say that the spillage will decrease the survival? Anybody?
Japanese study which looked in the National Cancer Database and found out that they analyzed nearly 8,500 cases, and laparoscopy was done in I think 2,000 cases, and cases who spilled and cases undergone laparoscopy had a bad outcome.
So actually in that data, they have analyzed what are the risk factors for rupture of tumor, and they have found out some points, because that large size clear cell carcinoma histology and these kinds of tumors are ruptured during minimally invasive surgery, and they need more chemotherapy. But whether and during that time, this evaluation of these 2,000 patients that showed that the survival has decreased. So that is not a randomized trial, but there is some evidence to say that the rupture may decrease the survival. But is a prospective randomized trial possible to find out this issue, Sajida?
That will be difficult. More patients.
Madam, small size tumor, can we consider that approach, especially if the ovarian tumor size is somewhat less than 10 centimeters, something like that?
There is no recommendation to go for minimally invasive surgery in early ovary, but it is said that if we can avoid rupture for small tumors, we can take it in the endo bag and take it out without spillage. And if you are competent enough to complete the staging, that is pelvic and pareatic lymphadenectomy, peritoneal staging, everything, if you are competent enough to do that, we may proceed with. You can proceed with laparoscopy. That's what it is given. But there is no recommendation like.
ESCOയിൽ അങ്ങനെയാ പറയുന്നത് madam.
Yeah.
ESCOയിൽ അങ്ങനെ കൊടുത്തിരിക്കുന്നത് MI.
ESCOയിൽ കൊടുത്തതാ ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞത്. If you can take out without rupture, you can go for surgery. And also restaging. Restaging also for restaging. If the patient is undergoing surgery outside and the tumor is removed, then there is no gross disease in the peritoneal cavity, you can complete staging with the laparoscopy.
Sajida, one question to you. perhaps to ma'am as well. Many times the ovarian cancer, especially ovarian cancer, they won't announce itself. It will be a cyst and with a lot of characterizations of malignancy or not. And patients will be subject more keen for undergo laparoscopy. So when do you call a laparoscopy safe? Is it according to all the Roma criteria and other criteria? It looks just malignant or non-malignant. Do you advise laparoscopy straight away?
Sir, I couldn't hear properly. When do you advise laparoscopy for a patient?
There is no evidence to say malignancy by terms of markers or something. Still, you can't rule out malignancy with borderline cancer. Then patient wants laparoscopy. Of course, there are certain records to be taken. Would you advise laparoscopy?
For ovarian tumors?
Ovary, yeah, I'm talking about ovary. Sorry.
Okay, sir. After initial imaging, if the chances of malignancy are high, we should consider the patient for open. We should counsel them regarding the chance of poor spillage, and we should tell the pros and cons, sir, because after initial assessment, and if the chance of malignancy are high, then I will not consider laparoscopy for my patients, sir.
One more question.
Sajida, tell the pre-operative indexes which can predict malignancy.
For elaborate answer, yeah.
Okay, the previous imaging is showing bilateral tumors, solid tumors, surface excrescences,
Iota.
iota called.
Yeah, there are so many indices which can predict malignancy before going for surgery. But even then, there is no 100% sure that this is going to be benign or malignant. So practically, it is better to avoid spillage for all ovarian tumors when you go for minimally invasive surgery. If you say that it is going to be ruptured, then better to go for a laparotomy. Try to take it out without rupture.
Regarding that staging you do before hyper or cytoreduction, when is done? Is it done immediately before surgery or before? And what are the, because sometimes you feel that doing a laparoscopic staging and looking into various crevices like behind stomach will be very difficult. So what are the minimum recommended procedures you advise for this diagnostic laparoscopy?
During what is the minimum recommended procedure for diagnostic laparoscopy? You asked, sir.
Chandramohan, audio clear alla. Chandramohan, the audio is not clear.
I don't know. I can't say. I am talking again. In ovarian cancer, when you are going to do cytoreduction and you're doing diagnostic laparoscopy, and when to do it and how to do it.
Okay, sir. In advanced ovarian cancer, the diagnostic laparoscopy should be considered. In early ovarian and pre-operative imaging is shown.
Sajida, the question is, when will you do it? On the same sitting as primary cytoreduction or in a pre-operative in 2 sittings? Probably that's what Chandramohan.
Same sitting, sir. Same sitting.
Okay. And what are the recommended procedure? Which are the areas and how many ports, any group? Because it may be tricky.
Sir, after putting one port.
Yeah.
Yes. Sir, 1 to 2 ports can be put. 2 ports will be needed to assess the route of mesentery involvement to move the bowel. So 1 to 2 ports should be put, and the 7 parameters should be assessed: the omentum, peritoneal, diaphragm involvement, bowel serosal involvement. All the 7 parameters should be assessed, and the scoring should be done. And there will be a decision taken then itself, and the patient, if she is for debulking surgery, then in single sitting she will be taken for proceeded with surgery, sir.
So do you have any idea regarding the sensitivity and specificity of diagnostic laparoscopy in predicting the disease?
77 to 100% accuracy is there, sir. It is proven while using this predictive index score cutoff of 8, sir.
Thank you.
If no more questions, shall we stop? Thank you, Sajida.
Thank you, ma'am.
മേഡം ഹാപ്പി ആയി കാണും. മേഡം